Hello and welcome to the Huddle. Liam, Santa Maria back with you, and it's all been happening. The NBL Blitz all week has been a doubleheader feast. All 10 NBL teams getting at it and dusting off the cobwebs. And of course, the FIBA Women's World Cup tipped off in Sydney last night. So we're going to break it all down with Jo Healy, who has been on the ground in both of those locations. Of course, you know her from the NBL broadcast, the basketball show. She was with me at the NBA Summer League this year in Las Vegas, and she has been in Darwin amongst it over the past week. So sit back, relax. Up next, Jo Healy. Jo, what's happening? Welcome to the Huddle.
Hey, Tiz, long time no see. How you doing?
I'm good. You sweated it out in the heat of Las Vegas, in the middle of the Nevada desert. You came back and then you went to Darwin. You're crazy.
I know. And then here's me 2 days back in Sydney and missing the sun and the sweat and all of that all over again. So, no, it's been good. It's been a fun year.
We're going to talk all about the Blitz. You were right there amongst it. We're going to dive deep into that beautiful moment you had with Aaron Baines post-game early in that tournament. But last night, the Women's World Cup tipped off. The Opals, a narrow loss to France. What was the energy in the building, and what was the kind of feeling like post-game?
The energy was really fun. Everyone was up and about. The opening ceremony was pretty amazing. And to be honest, right through the day, the energy was really cool at the arena. So disappointed for the Opals. Like, first up, there was so much hype around them, around seeing LJ back out there. That she hit that three-pointer and everyone went absolutely berserk. So there were lots of really good moments. I mean, their tournament's by no means over, but you just get the feeling with the French being slightly depleted, a couple of their players having only just arrived back from the States as well. It was a bit of an opportunity missed for them, I think. But they've got a pretty, not a cruisy game this evening, but one that they definitely should get through and hopefully work on some of the things that they were missing last night and go from there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, hopefully they can bounce back. Tournament play, man, you lose that first game of a tournament like this, and sometimes it could come back to bite you. So hopefully that's not the case. All right, we'll go talking about that atmosphere. Let's talk about the atmosphere at the Darwin basketball facility. Firstly, looking from afar, it looked like it had the most enormous fan in that building you're ever going to see in the world.
That's pretty accurate. It was. I don't think there was aircon on the stadium. Like, the doors were open. If it was, you didn't notice because it was bloody warm in there, I tell you. Even just being a spectator. So speaking to some of the guys after the game, they are dripping. You're watching them sort of sat out on the corner wide, waiting for that deep three, and the guys are literally just dripping off of their chin. Like, it's pretty rank, to be honest. But I mean, the atmosphere was great. The locals were loving it. The NBL weren't sort of totally sure what the numbers would be like, sort of come like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Mm-hmm. The weekend, it was sold out. It was great. But the numbers kept up and everyone was really enjoying seeing the players out there. Lots of the NBL guys made a lot of new fans with all the kids running about as well. So it was pretty cool. Okay.
Well, that's big. That's going to be key. The amount of people that turned out, right? Like, that's the big question coming into the tournament when I think back to like the 2015 Blitz in Townsville. That was kind of the beginning of the end for the Crocs because, there was no one there. Nobody turned up. And now it became apparent, like, listen, do you know what? The thirst for basketball has kind of died away in this city. They went to Tassie a few years ago and they came out in droves to watch those games. Do you get the sense, I mean, it wraps up tonight with a couple of games, but overall, do you get the sense like it was well enough attended to tick that box for the thirst of basketball in Darwin?
I reckon it's somewhere in between those two. Okay. It wasn't the droves and the numbers that you would have got in Tassie, but also the stadium capacity probably wasn't necessarily there either. But there's definitely a desire for an NBL team up there. Certainly speaking to people in the NBL who are having conversations with local government and things like that, like, they are willing to throw some money at this to really push for a team. So it's it'll be interesting to see what these other locations do in terms of how much they're willing to put forward, because Darwin is certainly putting their hand up at least and saying, you know, we want this to happen. Logistically, I mean, speak to any of the players about getting there. It's a bit of a trek for a lot of these teams. There aren't that many flights up to Darwin, but it's, I think before the tournament, I had probably written it off as being a location for an NBL team.
Uh-huh.
Now the Blitz is done and you've been listening to what people are saying up there. I'm like, okay, they're back on the list. I don't know how high up they are, but they put themselves back on the list. So it'd be interesting.
Nice. Man, I've been so bummed out that I haven't been there. Like there's, and you and I experienced this at the NBA Summer League back in July. Like when you watch from afar, you get a sense of who's playing well and who's doing this and that. But there's so much that you absorb and pick up from being in the building at a tournament like that and having the conversations with people involved pre-game and post-game and of an evening and so on and so forth. And I've had that at the Blitz for a number of years, but not this year. But you were there in amongst all of that atmosphere. Let's talk about some things that just kind of like caught your eye, some things about particular players or trends or teams that you picked up from being in the building.
Aaron Baines is probably the big one that stands out. Everyone was so excited to see Brisbane play that first game, and he is every bit how JD described him when you spoke to him on the Huddle a couple of weeks ago. He's so intimidating. He's so intense, but it's his way or the highway with this Brisbane team. And I think for any of the Bullets guys there, like if they don't buy in, that's their problem. Like he is 100% taking this team and doing it his way. And from all accounts, everybody's sort of loving it and appreciating it at the moment. So yeah, exciting signs for them. I can't remember, what was the term that JD used about the hype? What was he saying about not buying into the hype?
Yeah, he said you're not going to use the Jedi mind trick.
Yeah, that's what it was. He used that again.
Okay.
But said, look, it's hard not to be excited. It's just that they've got to be disciplined in staying focused, because obviously the competition is so even. But Brisbane looked good, and Bainesy after the game, as you said, like speaking to him, and I know it's not the actual tournament, but it was literally his first competitive game, and he's been through everything he's been through. And he looked down the barrel of the camera and he just said, Rach, like, kids, thank you so much. And I'm there trying not to cry. It was so nice. And he was just happy. He was just happy to be there. And that was one thing that really, really stood out. Yeah.
Oh, well, I think, was it Brisbane? They dropped the social clip with all the ding, 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 ding every time he said the word fun. And the one time you dropped it at the end as well. I mean, watching that game, and I know you would have just not taken your eyes off him, because you go back with him and the crew there for a while. You and I were there in Las Vegas a couple of months ago as he stepped back out there in front of everybody. So when that game started, he had the bucket down underneath the N1 and his arm goes up in the air and the huge smile on his face. What kind of sense did you get from him in those moments about how it felt being back on the floor?
Just, I think, relief, I would say. I don't think he's feeling a whole lot of pressure, or it doesn't look like he's feeling a whole lot of pressure. And he kind of alluded to that when he said, like, I don't think I'm ever going to not enjoy myself ever again. I imagine, obviously, he's been through so much mentally and physically, but there would have been a lot of lessons in that too, and growth. And for him, reflecting back, you can imagine, you can apply it to yourself as well when you think back and you're like, oh, I put too much pressure on myself in that moment, or I wasn't enjoying it because I wanted it so badly. And I imagine that he's had some life lessons in that too, and the fact that he's now really just enjoying the journey and embracing it. And it's tangible, you can feel it out there, and it's definitely having that impact on the guys around him as well.
And there's the two different elements to him and the impact he's going to have on that team, isn't it? It's kind of what sort of a dominant force he's going to be as a player. I mean, he was 14-6 in that game in 13 minutes. I think he was the best player in the game. He was certainly the best player on the floor during his minutes out there. But I even think even in those 13 minutes, he was the most impactful player in that game. And then there's the leadership and the culture piece that Brisbane have missed, the toughness and the accountability he brings to the squad.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess because he comes in, you know, he's got a ring, he's got all this NBA experience, but someone like Tyler Johnson, who is going to be excellent in this league. He's taking some time to find his feet and work out the style of play that they're working towards. But like Bainesy's up in his grill massively, pulling his shirt, telling him to get away from the refs, not worry about this thing. You know, yelling at him, I don't care, you know, focus on the team, and pulling them in the huddles after a foul and things like that. It's, as you said, like you don't take your eyes off of him, and you can see the impact that he's having on those guys around him.
The body language stuff is the best. You only get that from being courtside or being right there behind the bench. So DJ Mitchell and, these Lual Ding, like these guys are going to follow Baines to wherever he wants to take them. But those veteran guys, like Nathan Sobey, Jason, like Sobey isn't used to being told that kind of how it is in Brisbane over the last few years. Like that's been his team, and he's kind of done what he wants. I mean, what's the body language been there with those kind of more veteran guys, Kadee, Sobey, these type of guys?
It's funny you say that. I was having that conversation because Bainesy's obviously been given the captain's nod for this side, and so I can't remember who I sat with, but I said, you know, is that a bit of a knock to your Nathan Sobeys and Jace Kadees who have had this team for a while? But it doesn't look that way at all. It looks like they are fully embracing the fact that Bainesy's there, and probably from their point of view going, hang on a second, we have struggled the last few years. We need to get on board here because this is a massive opportunity for us to take advantage and actually be there at the end of the season come finals time. So there were no signs of any sort of tension or anything like that. And I had a good chat with Sobes actually, because he's still on limited minutes. I think he played 9 minutes a game so far. And, you know, he's a competitor, isn't he? And he's frustrated. I asked him, I'm like, are you okay to sit back, or are you sort of nagging at JD to be out there? And he goes, I'm nagging, but I also understand that I want to be ready for this season. I'm so serious about where we're going. So I think for someone like Sobes, like he's got his own personal physical stuff to focus on. He's just embracing the fact that, you know, they've got the team potentially to do it this year.
Yeah. And him staying healthy is going to be such an important part of that. Hey, look, while we're talking about chemistry, body language, let's talk about the Adelaide 36ers, because they went 3-0. They will probably win the Blitz because, you know, it depends on what happens tonight with Brisbane and Melbourne, but they put every step forward in a great way over the course of the week. They've looked great. And Antonius Cleveland comes, he looked like Kawhi Leonard in that opening half against
because that's a shout.
Against Tasmania. Like he was just hitting triples and fadeaways and then getting his hands on loose balls and finishing at the cup. Like they've got Craig Randall and Robert Franks. Robert Franks went off last night. But I'm interested, like we all know that they're stacked, they're loaded, they're legit, and they're going to be tough this season. But how well do they stay together? Anytime you have a stacked lineup, chemistry, like people have to sacrifice. And how willing are you going to be to do that on a season-long basis or also on a game-to-game basis? I'm fascinated to watch that with Adelaide this season. What did you pick up kind of courtside in that regard with the 36ers?
Yeah, you and I both. I think that's the big question mark around them. Like Franks was playing limited minutes throughout the beginning of the tournament, so they weren't really competing that much for time on the court. But you're right, they're so stacked. I think Craig Randall is going to be the most interesting one. He's fiery. He's seriously fierce out there on the court. Where, you know, I think every other team are going to absolutely hate him. He's going to be up in people's faces. He was already getting into it with a couple of the Southeast Melbourne players the other night. And it's for him, he's quite young, clearly very talented. When he's going downhill, there's no stopping him. But it is, you're right, it's how CJ can kind of manage all of those characters. From the sounds of things and from the looks of things, like it's very much a family orientated club at the moment. Lots of the guys have got young kids. They're all bouncing off of each other. And I think for someone like Craig, if he can come in and embrace that, they'll be sweet. I think they're going pretty hard in training. Randall and AC had a bit of a go at it the other day, but CJ's on them. He's been really disciplined with them. He's threatening them, not threatening them, but, throwing punishments on certain stats if they reach season games or don't reach season games. And so I think they're embracing it at the moment. I guess once they're into the season, when it starts getting tough, when the pressure sort of starts to build, then we see, how ready they really are and how sort of tight they are as a group.
Yeah. Yeah. That balancing act between wins and your numbers.
Yeah.
It depends. For some guys, it depends where you are in your career. If you're trying to get back to the association or you're trying to get there, man, how much is it all about the wins and then the number everybody eats? Can you get yourself to that place, or is your mind in a different place? That's going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I think AC is probably going to be a key to that, because I've spoken to him before, and not that he doesn't want to get back to the league, but he's also said, quite willingly, look, I don't want to sit on the end of the bench on an NBA team. Like I love being here. I want to be the guy. I want to, be in that winning culture. And, NBL now pays reasonably well. And so he's actually got a good life for himself, for his family. And I think he might be the one who helps to sort of mellow out the other two who perhaps will need their time in the spotlight. He might be the one who could potentially sort of help out. And being quite a good, obviously, defensive player, if he's not working offensively, he can still have an impact on the team the other way.
For sure. And if Robert Franks plays like he did last night, they're gonna lose very few games. Hey, while we're on the 36ers, shout out CJ Bruton, who just completely owns the NBL Blitz as a coach. He's now 9-0 as a head coach at the Blitz. He had one as like a stand-in coach for Andre 2 years ago. Then he went, I think it was 5-0 last season. Now that turned out to be a little bit of a mirage with what that Adelaide team went on to do, but then he's gone 3-0 this year as well. And we feel like that's a little bit much more kind of for real. So shout out CJ, because the pride, the cup is partly named after his dad. So it's very cool that he just never loses.
Cal was up there too, doing the rounds. I love the man. He's always happy to have a chat. So he was loving it. It's just a big social sort of experience for him up there, saying hi, wearing his W Wichita cap. So I think he had a chat with Rashad Kelly from the Tassie Jack Jumpers as well. So it was nice for those guys to connect to, which is cool.
All right. So who else? What other team or player or theme kind of caught your
eye? Rajon Tucker coming out and saying that he's the best new import in the league. Definitely raised some eyebrows. The players were talking about it. It was
right.
It was juicy. It was good. And then, someone like DJ Hogue comes out and drops 4 or 5 and 25 the next game. And you're kind of like, yeah, okay. People have definitely taken notice to what he had to say.
Okay. Nice.
I mean, we're expecting him to be excellent. He certainly showed signs of that for United, but that's a big call, I reckon.
So Craig Randall, Derek Walton Jr. is nice. DJ Hogue, as you say, Justin Robinson is a stud. Yeah. I mean, like you say, Rajon Tucker's going to be good. He's going to be very good. Is he right? Do you think, from what you saw in pre-season?
He's not far off. I don't think anyone you really got a full grasp of what they're fully capable of. The new imports coming in, they're still learning the teams. But I mean, Milton Doyle's pretty handy. Jack McVeigh was calling him the 6'5" Kevin Durant, and apparently he's had that before too. And then the Breakers were pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah,
which was good because admittedly, being obviously over here, you don't get to see them quite as much and up in person and speak to the guys and hear sort of the dynamic and how the group is. So it was really good to spend some time chatting to some of those guys and seeing the energy that they play with. Jarrell Brantley, I don't think I've ever seen someone on the court with that much energy. And then you look at Modi Mayor and his staff on the sideline. Like, they are so intense, but I think it really works for the group.
That's interesting, because I asked Modi, I'm not sure if I asked him on air or
no,
it was
you
off
did,
air.
You did,
okay.
You did.
I was like, are you going to be crazy? Like, are you going to chill as a head coach? And he said something like, like, I give what the team needs in that role. Like, they needed me to be energetic as this but he's just that same dude, right? Like that's just
100%. He's someone I was sat next to actually said like they're having trouble watching the game and not focusing on the stuff because all of them are up and about. But Modi particularly, obviously, just throwing his hands in the air and stamping his foot. But they're going to be really exciting to watch. I think like the imports are fun, and then you've got Rayan Rupert, who is just he's so impressive on the court. And then I had the chance to sit down with him actually for quite an in-depth one-on-one, speaking about his family, the fact that he plays for his father who passed away, and his sister's just won a WNBA championship with the Aces and is now back in Sydney playing for France. And he's just a really impressive young man. He's only 18. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's been an absolute standout in those. They play their third game tonight. Obviously, Tom Abercrombie getting hurt. Shout out to him. Successful surgery back home, but he's going to be out for a little while here, which gives Rupert like a runway to big minutes right out of the gate, which he may not have. They may have kind of eased him into it a little bit more if that had not been the case. And geez, he's been impressive in those first couple of games. He had 12 points and 3 steals. Game 1, knocked down 2 of 2 from long range and playmaking a little bit out of pick and roll. And I was like, oh, hold on. Wow, we expected the defense.
Exactly.
But what he's bringing offensively is unbelievable. And then he comes out and has 17 and 8. Modi should have played him down the stretch and maybe they would have got the win in that game. But from being there courtside, through the screen, it looked like he was remarkably comfortable and confident. Did you get that same sense from him in the building?
Definitely. Like sitting down, he sort of, he knows defense is his strength at the moment. And he said, look, I need to work on my offensive game, my stroke particularly. And then you go out there and I'm like, what part of your stroke do you need to work on? Because it looks pretty bloody good from here.
Yeah.
And he's not afraid to take a shot either, which I think he sort of was alluding to the fact that it's in pressure circumstances. It's down the stretch. He wants to be more of a go-to guy just to build on his game, of course. But it looks like he's got the license to do that, which is, I mean, as I said, only preseason. Maybe come the season, it's a little bit more structured. Who knows? But he's exciting. And I think he said he's still growing. Or Modi said he was still growing.
Yeah.
I think he's still got 2 inches to catch his dad, first of all. And you look at him in person, you're just like, you clearly haven't even grown into your shoes yet. Like you've got another 3 or 4 at least to keep going, and then to obviously fill out eventually too. So big things. I think a few people saying because he said he's really good friends with Ousmane Dieng, so they've been chatting and leaning on each other a little bit. But a couple of people sort of suggesting that he is coming into the season where Ousmane Dieng sort of left off from a next star's point of view. So that'll be interesting to see whether he can keep going from there or whether there's a bit of a wave.
Yeah. And as you say, it's preseason. Like we see some things in preseason every year, right? Like Didi Louzada hit, 8 triples in a game in the Blitz in Tassie. And then it was streaky when the regular season arrived at Kudos Bank Arena. Like,
look at the Kings in their first game.
They were all over the shop.
They were, and first of all, shout out to Fleur for taking the reins in that game. That was unbelievable. You sat there, and I definitely consider her a mate, and you sat there just as a female in basketball, so proud, just seeing her out there doing her thing, and she embraced it. She absolutely loved it, and she's like, look, it doesn't matter how the guys played. I think she said Zave at one point in the fourth quarter sort of either came from the bench or was getting up to go on the court, and he just said, Fleur, I'm so sorry, we've been absolutely shite. But that's they all get on so well, they can have those conversations, and all the boys were like, look, that was terrible, but we've got to get it out of our system. And I think you see that and you go, it's preseason, it's the Sydney Kings, they've got great depth, great players, good coaching staff. They'll be absolutely fine. They will sort themselves out. Sorry, I went to
we see things, some funky things at the Blitz. And watching Tajir McCall last night as the head coach of the Taipans was very fun. I chatted with Adam Ford about it this morning, and I was like, yo, what's going on there? He said, look, he was always going to sit that game out because of just like the load. So, we thought we'd give it a whirl, and he could kind of get a bit more of an understanding of what it's like on that side, because, like he said, look, Taj is the gaffer for our team. Like, he's the voice, he's the leader, and he needs to be the extension of me on the court, is basically what Forty was saying. So him having a bit more of an understanding of that experience for me, and then he said it was really interesting seeing how well the guys were going to like follow him in that moment, and the way they rallied late in that game, in that third quarter in particular. Like, it's not something you see very often, one of the players just taking the reins.
No, it's pretty cool though. I think Cairns are going to be everyone's like second favorite team. They're a great young group of guys. 40 as a coach is super accessible. He speaks really well. Always looking dapper on the sidelines. Their kit, by the way, the snakeskin kit is even better in person. It is so good. He said he's eyeing off some shoes to match it, actually, which
like some Al Westover sort of cowboy boots.
Yeah, can't wait to see those. But he said the same thing to me about Taj being the natural leader. They actually haven't appointed anyone captain. Mm-hmm. So 40 was sort of saying, look, we've got guys with certain strengths in certain areas, and on the court, Taj is that guy. He's one of the older ones in the group because they are quite young. But someone like Sam Wardenberg, who's coming in as a rookie but has got pretty good, big expectations on his shoulders, he's not carrying bags. So 40's got all the veteran guys carrying bags throughout the Blitz and things like that. So he's just really trying to work with the group and help the guys find their feet themselves and lean on each other for certain things. And I don't know, I really like the Taipans. And I mean, you've got McCall coming in, Sam, as I said, DJ is an absolute sniper. He looks really, really impressive. And I don't know whether it comes through on the telly, but he's a lot bigger than what you think he is.
Long, but can play the three.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he's going to be a bit of a secret weapon for them.
Yeah. They're going to be, what's the equivalent of like the NBL League Pass team? They're like the KO team of the league this season. Like, you got to watch Taipan's games.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I think those teams at the end, like what they were at the end of last season and what Adelaide were at the end of last season, where they're like a spoiler.
Yeah.
To me, that's the Taipans right from opening night.
Definitely. And some of their backcourt, sort of Ben Air and those guys. I mean, didn't he have a game last night, by the way? But they're hustlers. Like they are in players' faces. They're going to be annoying to play. And as you said, I think they will push teams and just upset a few teams. They'll be in it. They just might run out of legs occasionally.
I want to just talk before we finish up here, and I don't want to, like, it's a bit of a bummer to go take it to a downer, but about Ariel Hook-Porty. Devastating. And I think we all can appreciate how devastating it is and how we've seen it with DJ Vasiljevic and with Jack White over recent years, that Achilles injury. I'm in that snapped Achilles club. So I know, like, as soon as I saw it and I still look back, I just kind of, could just had those feelings all over again. Devastating for him and Melbourne United and whatnot. But I want to speak to you about like how well he was playing and how good he was looking in those first couple of games before that happened.
Yeah, look, I think he's definitely gone away and done some work. And from chatting to some of the Melbourne staff and things, he's really getting on like really, really well with some of the Melbourne, the new imports as well. And so it's such a shame. Like he's so intimidating. I love watching him from a defensive point of view. He's the most intense player out there. He's, barking the entire time. And I actually spoke to Melbourne this morning and just to sort of gauge how he's feeling mentally at the moment. And they said he was amazing, like sort of obviously devastated, but kind of just tackling it head first. Does it help that we've got 2 case studies recently who have come back from what he's about to go through better and stronger and have had more opportunities for it? maybe he looks at that and goes, look, it's going to be a long 12 months, but hey, look where I could be. Let's see what happens.
100%. And the fact that one of his former teammates is and who has worked with that medical stuff and is now in the NBA, provides that blueprint for him, I think is a massive positive. Like if you want to find a silver lining around a gray cloud, like no doubt the examples of DJ, but even more specifically Jack, who he knows so well, I think is going to be super helpful for him.
Yeah, I know. I think you're right. Never good to see. And I mean, where does it leave Melbourne? They looked like they had a lot of work to do anyway. Again, you sort of go, look, it's Melbourne United. Dean Bickerman's been there, done that. They'll be okay. But it's just given them another element that they're going to have to work out.
So the way I saw that situation coming into the season was Hook Porty was the guy, and Isaac was a process. Let's see what he can give us later in the year as we kind of ramp him up slowly and take care of his body. And for me, he was going to be the backup, and then it would become a bit of a position battle later in the season. Hopefully both of them playing at a really high level like Joe Luala-Chul and Ariel Hook Porty were doing last season. Now that changes completely. Like this is a next stage. It's not an import that you can just replace with an import. It's from what you've seen from Isaac, and he was good in his most recent game. I mean, is he ready to now just put his hand up and say, look, put the Superman cape on and say, don't worry about it, I've got this?
He will want to be. Like you've spoken to him. He's wanted this opportunity, and I think he's the kind of person who will go out and take it with both hands. They'll have to manage his load for sure. But I mean, I thought he was actually going to be one of their secret weapons this year as such a good local player who, hasn't been around for a year or so, but how good he is. You remember back to sort of when he was with 36ers and he was early running for the MVP that season that he was playing there with Josh Giddey. So I definitely think he can get back to that point. It might take them a little while for sure. But I don't know, it's something about Melbourne United. You just know that they'll work it out. It just might take them a little while.
All right, to finish off, let's not finish on a couple of guys that are maybe getting hurt or coming back from being hurt. Let's talk about a guy who just always tears it up. And for me, it was the moment, it was Bainesy and his first game, and it was Bryce Cotton and what he did with that 36-point explosion against Cairns, and he's just kind of chilled through the rest of the tournament because it's preseason and he's done this and he's a veteran and he knows how it works. But it felt like a statement, that performance.
Yeah, I think so. Bryce is unbelievable. When you kind of like, do you think at any time you're going to slow down and start aging? And it's like, no, he's just going to go out there and keep killing it. But I did speak to him afterwards, and I sort of said, look, you broke the streak last season. New look team, new coach coming in. Does it feel like there's a chip on your shoulder and you've got a point to prove and you've got to get back to finals this season? And Bryce being Bryce is a nightmare. He's like, no. Like,
he just deflects all that stuff.
He does, doesn't he? But you just know, you can see him. He's got that white line fever, doesn't he? And I think they do. And like JR's come in and they lost a bit of that defensive sort of grit last season, I think. And that's something that they're really, really working on. And what they can do offensively. And we haven't seen too much of Thomas yet.
Yep.
So it will. Yeah. I think he's going to be a really good fit there. But their depth is ridiculous. Like you forget, sort of you read it on paper and you're like, okay. But then you see it down the bench and you're like, okay, like LT's on the bench. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Like these kind of guys. And Mitch Norton obviously went down with the injury, but he'll be okay. Kyle Zunic, like these guys are solid role players. And then to be there to support your likes of Bryce and Corey Webster coming in. I don't think they've probably got the same. I don't have the same concerns about Perth as I do Adelaide in terms of managing those personalities. I feel like JR's probably got an easier job. The guys seem to not be a little bit more chilled, but just there's a better balance of personalities with Perth. But they 100% have got a point to prove this season, and I have no doubt that they're going to do it.
Yeah. I think you're so bang on about Bryce. He'll deflect and he said, I'm not thinking anything that you're suggesting I'm thinking, but he is.
Yeah.
Like when on the call the other night, maybe it was on overtime or whatever, and I said something about, like everyone's come in, they're talking about Xavier Cooks as MVP. Jalen Adams was MVP the previous year. And I was like, do you think? And Corey was like, he sees everything and hears everything. And I think back to years ago when, Corey was saying this, that, and the other about the Wildcats. And Bryce was saying, I don't hear it. I don't know. Who is the guy? I don't even. And then he hits the shot and he turns around and he points at him saying, like, we're making the playoffs. Like, he is a competitive beast. And he does hear it and he does feel it. And every now and then it comes to the fore and he shows it. And I feel without a shadow of a doubt that first game, he was like, this is preseason and I would usually approach it, but I'm coming out and just delivering today.
Yeah. No, it was so good. He's unbelievable to watch. And what I always find seeing him play live is I forget how small he is.
Right.
And therefore you just go, how are you doing what you're doing and getting yourself into those positions? And yeah, I kind of take my journalism hat off when I watch him and just my jaw hits the ground and I just enjoy it. I'm like, flip, this is fun.
Love it. All right, let's finish it off there, because I think our jaw's going to hit the ground a lot of times this season watching NBL 23. And we had a few of those moments with a few guys at the Blitz, but once October 1 rolls around, we're going to have a whole bunch more. And you're going to be a big part of it there in Sydney.
I hope so. Quick question for you. What are you most looking forward to this season?
What am I most looking forward to? I think Adelaide being a force, like it's been 20 years since they raised the championship banner. And it's been, like a rough 3 years straight as 7th. And I would love for CJ Bruton to be like a really successful head coach in this league, because the Brutons as a family have been so important to the NBL over the journey. And I also want like an owner who splashes some money to get wins, to get rewarded. Like that's what we want owners in this league doing, to try to kind of come big to the party and throw the resources around. So, and then also that fan base, I love the Adelaide 36ers fans because they're smart and they're passionate and they get around their team, and they've had a lot of winning over a long time, but not as much in recent times. So I think what Adelaide being a force again is what I'm looking forward to this season.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty exciting.
You?
My mum goes to all of their games, so she's stoked.
Okay. You? What about you?
Yeah, probably would have said the same thing. Do you know another team that I can't wait to see them not prove a point, but I think we all, admittedly, I think I sort of went, Tassie last year it was a fairy tale. They can't back it up. They cannot back it up. And then you see them play and you're like, it's pretty much the same group. I know Josh Adams is really tough to replace, but they've brought in 2 guys who are probably at least have hit his level, and then maybe even a little bit more because there are 2 of them.
Right.
And I can't wait to see you guys like giving it to these teams again, and just being those underdogs, even though they were in the grand final series last year. I feel like they still are underdogs. Like they need to be there for a few years to really establish themselves. So I can't wait to see them give it to some of these more established, bigger cities. I
think that's a really good call, because Scott Roth, when he took over that role, he was saying, I'm trying to lay some foundations and build something that's just going to be successful year in, year out, so that we become like the Perth Wildcats in this league. We don't want to be highs and lows. He tells his players, I don't want highs and lows on the day-to-day. I don't want highs and lows from you in a game, but he doesn't want highs and lows from that team and that organization on a year-to-year basis. So when they come out and they do that again, where they're just a really tough beat and they're not going to lose games themselves. You're going to have to come in and hit shots and beat them. And then they're in the mix again late in the season, and he's just going to say, I've been telling you all along.
I know. don't know, sit there smug with his cigar, just watching it all happen in front of him. I love it.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to watch it all happen in front of us over the course of the season. And at some stage soon, we're going to circle back and do this all over again because it was a great chat. Love having you on. And, thanks for doing it.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Cheers.